So we finished configuring our UCS with everything from VLANs to VNICs, and we just want to validate that. I mean, if we had a switch, we could say show interface and take a look at the config and make sure all the VLANs are added and the right native VLAN was picked. And the good news is we actually do have that functionality within the UCS CLI, or the command line interface. Okay, so we have some servers configured, we've applied VLANs to VNICs, and we just want to validate that the network configuration is good. And so recall that if we go to the Equipment tab and click on the servers, expand that, take a look at one of these, and we go to VIF paths. Now, that stands for Virtual Interface Paths, and we can expand these to see that there are individual virtual circuits that are built with every VNIC. So in our environment, we have 3 VNICs on each fabric, and each one has been assigned a virtual circuit ID. So what is a virtual circuit? Well, if we pull up the CLI, or the command line interface, and yes, there is a CLI for UCS. We don't use it a whole lot for configuration, even though it is fully featured and we could, but validating configuration is really where it shines. And so we get to this, and we might try to do like a show run or something, but it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because, well, it's a different interface. It's got other types of configurations that we're going to do, but we're not going to focus on this. We actually want to enter a separate mode of configuration, and it's called the NXOS mode. And so we say connect NXOS and hit enter. And now all of a sudden, we're in an NXOS instance. Now NXOS is the software that runs on a Cisco Nexus switch. You say, well, we're not on a Nexus switch. Well, we kind of are. A Fabric Interconnect is architecturally a Nexus switch that has all of the UCS components built into it. And from here, we can take a look at the show run. And we can start to see that, oh wow, there's a lot of configuration in here. This is like a very well configured Nexus, very robust configuration, lots and lots of QoS settings, fabric extenders, SNMP, etc. And so we're going to break out of this and run another configuration command, and we're just going to say show run interface vEthernet. Well, what's a vEthernet? Well, we did cover this in an earlier video within this skill. And so it is a virtual Ethernet port within the Fabric Interconnect. And we notice back here, virtual circuit 757. Well, let's try 757. We take a look, and this should look very familiar to us who have a networking background at least. vEthernet 757 is configured just like any other Nexus Ethernet interface. We have switch mode trunk. We have switch port trunk allowed command with the VLANs on there. And we can even see the description. This is server 1/1. We're on server 1 in chassis 1. That's where 1/1 comes from. And this is tied to VNIC 0. So, again, we talked about how when we're configuring a VNIC, it's almost like we're configuring an Ethernet interface on the upstream network. And this is why. Because when we applied VLANs to that VNIC, it's applying them to this switch port. The switch port being a virtual Ethernet interface. Now, the other piece of information we can glean from UCS Manager back here is that this VNIC 0, has been pinned to Fabric Interconnect A port 1/30. And we can take a look at that here too. Show run interface Ethernet 1/30. Now, we are on Fabric Interconnect A, so just keep in mind that we do have separate NXOS instances running on each Fabric Interconnect. So if we're going to take a look, for example, back here at virtual circuits on the B side, we'd need to be on the Fabric Interconnect B in order to see that. So we're looking at 1/30 on Fabric Interconnect A, and we see that there are VLANs that have been allowed here as well. And so we can start to troubleshoot this where, well, let's say that we're having a server problem, and we look at it and it's like, well, it looks like VLAN 18 isn't connecting. And so we take a look at this and we say, okay, well, traffic on VLAN 18 is allowed up Ethernet 1/30. So let's take a look at the VNIC, and we scroll over here, we take a look at the VNIC, vEthernet 757, and oh, look at that, VLAN 18 hasn't actually been allowed on this VNIC. And so just like that, we very quickly troubleshot without having to drill through all of the UCS GUI menus. We've gone to the CLI and validated in moments that VLAN 18 is missing. The UCS CLI doesn't need to be intimidating. In fact, if we have any amount of switch port configuration experience on traditional Cisco, Nexus, or Catalyst, we can go into the Connect NXOS instance within the Fabric Interconnect, and it looks just like a normal switch to us. Keeping in mind that virtual circuits back in the VIF paths section of the UCS Manager ties to virtual Ethernet interfaces in the CLI. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.